Hello, the food story is brought to you by Shiori. Japanese food is relatively simple and you can never get bored of it, but there are a lot of foreign food arrangements in Japan. There are some authentic foreign dishes, but here are some foreign dishes seasoned by the Japanese and some unusual dishes that are popular among foreigners. The culture of Western food in Japan is. In the Meiji era, various cuisines were brought in from abroad along with industrial products. Initially, they were eaten by the upper class, but later they were introduced to the common people. However, although the cooking methods were understandable, the seasonings, spices and ingredients were not available to the common people. After a period of trial and error, the original cuisine we call Japanese and Western food today was born by using alternative Japanese seasonings and ingredients to suit the Japanese taste. Foreign cuisine is still challenged in many ways today, but the ingredients and seasonings are more readily available and the Japanese have become accustomed to foreign tastes. There is not much of a difference between foreign cuisine and Japanese cuisine. Japanese seasonings are only added as a secret ingredient. There are still many documents on when various foreign cuisines were introduced to Japan, and how they were introduced to the common people, but we can't introduce all of them, so we will only introduce the history of ramen. Ramen is eaten in cities all over the world as a Japanese food, but it was first introduced to Japan from China in 1488, but there is no documentation of who ate it. The recipe from that time is still around, and if you look at the recipe, you will see that the way to make ramen noodles is almost the same as it is today. The first person officially credited with eating ramen in the archives was Tokugawa Mitsukuni, Mito Koman, in 1697. But the archives state that ramen didn't spread to the general public until more than 150 years later, in 1870, when it was introduced to all of Japan from Yokohama. Ramen is easily recognizable as a Chinese dish from its appearance, but surprisingly, the roots of a Japanese dish called tempura were also introduced from Portugal about 700 years ago. Furthermore, tempura is said to have originated in Persia in the 6th century. Today, however, Japanese tempura has evolved in its own way and is a completely different food. Now that we've given you a bit of history, let's move on to some of our favorite Japanese Western food recommendations. Amurosu. It's shaped like an omelette, with an egg around it and what we call chicken rice inside. These days it's wrapped in a very soft baked egg, but it was originally wrapped in a well-baked egg. You can eat it at Western restaurants, family restaurants and edible cafes. A wide variety of Japanese pasta. Japan loves noodles, so many kinds of pasta are made in Japan. Naturally, there are many kinds of pasta that you can't find in Italy, especially the Neapolitan pasta, which has an Italian name but is only found in Japan. This pasta has been called pasta for about 20 years now, but before that it was all called spaghetti. There are authentic Italian dishes that rival the Italian cuisine, but I highly recommend the Japanese-style Italian. Curry and rice. Curry rice is already an established part of the national diet. It is distinctly different from the authentic Indian curry. It has been modified to suit the Japanese rice, which is the staple food. There are many theories about when curry was introduced to Japan, but all of them are well documented. The modern Japanese style of curry is said to have originated from the style that the Japanese Navy ate on board ships. At the time, the curry was a mixture of the Western-style beef stew, the Japanese-style meat and potatoes, and the Indian-style curry. Even today, when there is a surplus of the Japanese side dish meat and potatoes, curry roux is often added to the meat and potatoes to make a curry the next day. In Japan, there are two types of curry shops. The authentic Indian curry and the Japanese curry, but Japanese curry shops are not as Asian in appearance. Curry is often on the menu at cafes and other restaurants, so it's relatively easy to eat. Deep fried food. In Japan, there are three types of oil frying dishes: tempura, karaage, and katsu. Tempura is deep fried by dipping the ingredients in flour dissolved in water. Karaage is deep fried by dipping the ingredients directly in flour. Cutlets are fried by adding flour and a beaten egg to the ingredients and then dipping them in breadcrumbs. These are also made by successfully fusing the cuisines of various countries to create a unique Japanese dish. The ingredients used for the frying are natural, but the batter is also made with care, so the food is delicious. Bread. There are many kinds of bread in Japan. Among them, side dish bread is very popular and can be found everywhere. You can find all kinds of breads in convenience stores, but I recommend going to a store that specializes in bread. Curry bread, which contains curry cooked for curry bread, is the most popular in Japan. There is a wide variety, so I recommend buying one type of bread at a time and several different types. There are many other kinds of Western Japanese food options. If you've been to Japan a few times, try the off-the-main street eateries rather than the more famous ones. Japan is very strict about food hygiene, so it's safe to go into any eatery. If you go into such a restaurant in a rural area of Japan, of course you will not be able to communicate in English. You will be able to communicate only with words that ignore the grammar explained in this site. Such restaurants are often run by friendly people, so if you get to know them, you will be greeted warmly whenever you go there. Sorry for the poor English. Thank you very much.